chuck, I don't really sip liquor. Mini AK in the whip, I don't fight, nigga. Feel like Ray J with his bitch, hit it first, nigga. Maybe R. Kelly with the words, I'ma flirt with it. Piss on you and your friends, I'ma buy you a Birkin so you can share the purse with her. No Zans, I'm the master of perks, nigga. Being the boss has his curses and perks with it. I'm on them pills when we fuck, I'm berserk with it. Put the pussy on the platter like I ate dessert with it. New fit, Versace, Hermes, expensive. My hand is under her dress, I feel it. Her hand going through my dress. She said she feel devil horns on my head. Kill a matador cause all the bullshit is dead. Attaboy, don't go tellin' to the feds. Hardcore, I know I'm the shit, leave my bowels on y'all. Shit Gucci and Prada and Louis Vuitton. I'm out of your league, bitch, I feel like LeBron. Throw it off of the backboard, dunk on your mom. Spend 150K just because Elliot helped me spend that on my wall. I'm paranoid, so I got me a Glock. Need me a Draco, the Glock not enough. Every day I wake up spending a lot. So much money I can't help but flaw. My little shorty almost hit the road. She told me I gotta work on my flaws. Sing this all day long. Serenade your bitch, I play the guitar. You asking her questions about her night out. I say hold on, can't fuck on a bitch if the vibe wrong. I done set the wrong lyrics on the right song. Can't sing my shit, no sing-alongs. Ayy, I'ma fuck her all night long. I'ma beat up on the chest like King Kong. Got it so wet, thought shorty left the shower on. Brick stashed in the bathroom, leave the towels alone.
Oh, hey everybody. I know it's been a long time. I'm gonna catch you guys all up to speed. Welcome to the cooking video that I promised. Oh, wait a minute. Apparently the title says it's an A80J review. Okay, I guess we're reviewing the Sony A80J today. Sorry guys, I got confused. I thought it was a cooking video. Of course, no, I didn't really believe it was a cooking video. Anyways, guys, welcome to Tech Tales. First of all, why haven't I made any videos? Again, for me, it's never about subscriber count. I want to make videos for anyone who's willing to give me their time and who's willing to give me their trust. So first of all, thank you to anybody who's still watching. I really make these videos for just, you know, if I can even help out 10 people, I would have called the video worth it. Because when we're talking about these products, we're talking about big money. Okay, so we are discussing the Sony A80J and the LG OLED. G1 is the one that I purchased and it's no longer with me. So I also got the LG C1, 77 inches, and the LG G1 at 77 inches. Now, you guys might be wondering, okay, well, where are the TVs at? Why aren't you showing me the TVs? Okay, first of all, if you're relying on a YouTube video to tell you whether a TV is good or not, you've already failed, okay? Don't look at videos comparing them, etc. The general things a comparison video might be able to tell you is whether you can make out more details or whether, and again, that's pretty much it. I mean, brightness, all that stuff has to do with the dynamic range of the camera, the ISO settings, the shutter speed, you know, the aperture, whether it's fixed, constant, variable. So if you're looking at YouTube videos for TV reviews and you want to see a side-by-side of these three, I'm not going to show you that because that would be a disservice to you. Instead, what I'm going to do is just tell you honestly what I believe. And for any of you who are new to this channel, I'm very strongly opinionated. Now, again, let me preface this by saying opinionated, okay? It does not mean I'm a hater of anything. You know, I have all the consoles. I've always had, you know, been fortunate enough to save up for these expensive tech products, purchases and stuff like that, and work with TV manufacturers before. I have worked with LG before for when I actually reviewed their LG E657P back when it was like $6,000. So again, for anybody wondering, don't take this video to be as I'm taking one side or the other. I'm simply speaking about the product, and the product should speak for itself. Now, So let's start with the LGs, okay? The C1 and the G1. The G1 has that heat sink, okay? And then, so let me just grab some styrofoam. I'll be right back. Shh. 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 Bastard. Eating styrofoam. Okay. Ah. Ah, gross. Gross. It's the biggest piece of styrofoam. It's like this big. Where were we? The LG C1 and the G1. Now, first of all, if you guys want to see more specific objective measures for these TVs, feel free to check out HDTV Test, and they can tell you quite exactly for at least their panel variation. Now you guys have to remember, when they're giving these numbers, they're giving for their panel. They didn't buy like 5 of the TVs and calculate an average, so yours might be different. So be careful being too objective with the numbers, but again, if you want specific numbers in terms of nits and brightness, head on over to HDTV Test with Vincent, Teoh. A lot of people in the audio video community know his name. So just go there and you guys can go with that. This review is going to discuss the more important issues for somebody who's, do I want to get the LG or do I want to get the Sony? So I have a strong opinion on this, and this may not win me any fans in the department. So for example, the LG C1, okay, was at one point more expensive than the Sony A80J 65 inches. Then that deal went away from Costco, and now the Sony A80J is higher again by $400. So with the LG C1 and the G1, and me comparing them, and really just comparing the two, just imagine the G1 is just brighter, and it's pretty much it. Brighter, and definitely way more accurate out of the box. So if you care about color accuracy in terms of Rec 709, HDR, you might want to go for that G1, including the heat sink, which will keep the panel, more efficient, keep it more, there's a lot more longevity there in terms of the LG G1 panel. But the price difference is pretty stunning. So the LG G1 at 77 inches comes at $3,799.99, whereas the 65-inch C1, actually, why am I doing the 65-inch? The 77-inch C1 comes at $2,899. So as you can tell, it's about $1,000 different. Now, again, guys, when you're calculating things like, the G1 comes with a warranty. Now, when you're calculating these things, these are the things you have to consider. So the G1 has a warranty, however, that supposedly covers the burn-in. However, I would not hold my breath, and I would not give any of this stock. I have dealt with LG warranty before, several times for OLEDs, and they're pretty terrible. So don't forget about that 5-year warranty. Just pretend it doesn't have a warranty, and you may want to do another warranty. Now, in terms of people looking to get these on Best Buy with Geeksquad protection, again, I'm going to say I've had a horrible experience with Geeksquad. I've known several people who have. And actually, if you read the fine terms, if you ever have a panel issue, they can give you like a used one that's perhaps worse. And also, they don't concurrently replace the panel if the manufacturer warranty is active and there's a burn-in, because apparently, like, you have to kind of use that out before they'll replace it. So there's a few things, little nooks there, Geeksquad protection, that people keep raving about its burn-in policy. But again, they really find a great way to get out of it. Again, if you're at the sub $2,000 TVs, like $1,200, $1,300, maybe even $1,500, they'll perhaps be a lot more easy to replace your panel entirely outright or give you money. Anyways, side note, ran about Best Buy over. So again, between the G1 and the C1, those are the differences. And again, it comes down to whether you want to spend the $1,000 and if you expect to keep the TV for at least a healthy amount of 5 years. I say healthy because if you're switching out TVs every 2-3 years, there must be something wrong with you, because there really isn't that much technological advancement, at least in my opinion, to warrant changing out your TV every 2 to 3 years. But God bless you if you can. So the LG G1, and you know, just pretend the G1 and the C1 are just for like gamers essentially. And I want to say that this isn't really an unpopular opinion. A lot of people consider the LG for gamers because it comes with VRR, ALLM, and it comes with 4K at 120 and Dolby Vision at 4K 120, aka game mode with Dolby Vision, with 4 ports. Now this is important. The onboard SoC, or system on chip, for the LG is apparently custom to LG. They don't outsource it. Unlike Sony, they do a MediaTek MT5865 system on chip, and we'll get into why that's important, because the Sony only has 2 HDMI 2.1s. Now this is something that people really slam, and I myself have slammed, and I'll get into it when you really think about it. But for now, comparing the C1 to the G1 and the Sony. Now, the Sony A80J, the A90J. The A90J, pretend it's the G1 to the A80J. It has the heat sink, so there's that. Now, if you are eyeing a Sony and an LG and you're caught because you're like, God, I really want the VRR, which they still haven't put out. And for those of you who don't know, variable refresh rate is basically it adjusts the frequency of the panel to match whatever the frame rate is, so there's ideally no tearing. Essentially, it's like NVIDIA G-Sync, you know, where you don't get the tearing or what have you. And so that's VRR, and Sony doesn't have VRR yet. But I guarantee you, when the PS5 actually supports VRR, you bet your ass Sony's gonna have it. There's no question about it. People like to give a lot of scare tactics. Just like a long time ago, they gave scare tactics about Sony not having Dolby Vision, and then they just updated the firmware. So, however, with Sony, they are painfully slow. We're talking things can take years to come out. 2-3 years. Okay, probably not 2-3 years, but you know, 1 to 1.5 years, right? You might just be sitting around waiting for a glorious update, whereas LG perhaps pushes it out more. Now, ALLM is essentially just pretty much a function where it just switches auto low latency mode. Basically, if the TV detects you're in a game, it switches to game mode for you. You don't have to go in the setting, you don't have to find the remote, you don't have to do any of that. Kind of a non-feature, if I can be honest. It takes 2 seconds to switch into game mode yourself, so that's not a big deal. But again, it is a win for the LG because the Sony does not have that. They have it only for the PS5, and they call it auto picture mode, and it only supports when it detects the PS5 HDMI identifier, which is a little insane, but hopefully Sony wakes up and smells the coffee and can at least put it out for other devices. Maybe they're more conservative in how they put things out. And now getting on to 4K 120 with Dolby Vision. Now, the difference between G1, C1, and the A80J, again, in terms of feature set, and we're talking only feature set right now, would be that the C1, the G1, they have all the gaming stuff. They have the VR, the 4K, all of that good stuff, the 4K at Dolby Vision game mode, and you know, essentially they also have slightly lower latency. Okay, people look at these numbers and go, oh my God. But I ask you guys, how many of you are actually competitively gaming? And if you are, why are you gaming on the TV? Why don't you have a monitor that can go 240 hertz refresh rate? So sometimes these criticisms of Sony don't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But then someone might say, well, I still want the best that a TV can offer, which is a fair enough point. I get you. I understand. But again, to me, and I think most users that are hardcore gamers, and I'm not a hardcore gamer in the sense that I'm a competitive hardcore gamer, that millisecond in Dolby Vision won't really matter that much. It'll slightly lag. But again, if I'm used to a quicker, you know, input lag on the LG, then I go to play Forza 5 on the A80J and I try to turn my turns. I might miss a turn by like, you know, of course, like a few microseconds, because that's what it is. It's not like a 10-second difference. Now we've discussed the HDMI 2.1, I also want to go into certain things. Now, a lot of people think that you need HDMI 2.1 for Dolby Atmos, and I was mistaken on this as well, that you would need Dolby Atmos for HDMI 2.1, but turns out HDMI Association releases a group of features, okay? Pretend they release optional features. They go, HDMI 2.1 has support for VRR, 4K at 120, It's up to the manufacturers to determine which feature they want to take. That's why they're not allowed to just call their TV a HDMI 2.1 TV, and cable manufacturers aren't allowed to say HDMI 2.1 because that's a bit misleading. You're supposed to say ultra premium high-speed cable, or high-speed with Ethernet, or high-speed cable. These are the kind of distinguishing factors of HDMI 2.1. Now, Dolby Atmos is basically a compressed lossless for Dolby True HD and DTS HD Master Audio, along with Dolby Atmos metadata. Dolby Atmos metadata creates object-based sound. So imagine you have a helicopter, they can, on their program, the sound composer can take an orb and swing it across the theater's 18 speakers in any way he wants. Now the Dolby Atmos is a smart metadata that can also down mix it. So as you look, obviously no home, unless you're like a billionaire, you would actually have a home theater, an actual theater in the mansion, which would be interesting. Coughing about it. So Dolby Atmos is very intelligent, but again, it down mixes certain things because I'm hiccuping now. It downplays certain things, whatever. This will be the first hiccuping review on YouTube. It downplays discrete objects in terms, and basically the biggest deal with HDMI 2.1 is that it now makes use of the Ethernet channel that used to go unused for expanded audio. And also that which now definitely is a requirement if you want to do Dolby Atmos to the HDMI 2.1 spec. You can still technically do it to the 2.0 spec. So Dolby Atmos is supported on HDMI 2.0 chipsets with a firmware update. So that's something really important for people to know, because, and here we go, the biggest con a lot of gamers, and I think it's understandable, is that one of the HDMI 2.1 ports is an eARC, which means you'll lose it if you have a soundbar. You absolutely, or even a receiver, if you send it from the TV to the receiver, you'll lose it. You'll lose the eARC, you lose the HDMI 2.1 port, then you're left with just one. But then if you have a PlayStation 5, an Xbox Series X, and oh my God, with my situation, I also have a PC with an RTX, as you guys know, 3080 Ti. How am I gonna connect all those? Now that's where, yes, this is a huge con with the Sony, is that you'll lose out on the port. In terms of Xbox and PS5, they make a splitter. There's only one company making it on Amazon, where it works for everything as if you actually had two more ports, so it alleviates some of those concerns. But again, if you want to also connect your PC, you can't do it because there's no third HDMI 2.1. And again, we want 2.1 for variable refresh rate and 4K at 120. There are some TVs that actually support variable refresh rate with HDMI 2.0, but they're not common. So my answer to this, my rebuttal, and this is my logic that I was thinking of before I bought all these TVs, is that my rebuttal is that there will eventually be a three-way splitter. There already is with Denon and I think Marantz. They have like a splitter that's three ways, but it's like $200 and it's only in Europe, which is really weird. So there will be a splitter eventually that will just allow you to connect three, and you can just, sorry, a switcher, not a splitter. You don't want a splitter, a switcher. An HDMI switcher will allow you to just switch between them at full bandwidth capacity, which is 48 gigabits per second, which is what you would want for 8K 30 FPS video, which we have nothing of yet. Now, basically what I'm trying to tell people is it's really not the biggest deal. Just pretend they have the same 4 HDMI 2.1. Sony is a little more ghetto, and that you're gonna have to connect that, you know, you're gonna have to connect that little bit of extra hardware. Now, with that being said, let's assume that that's all equal and Sony will eventually get the VR. In fact, they're marketing it, they're promising it to people purchasing the Bravia, perfect for PlayStation 5 TVs. Now, another huge con is, and this is for the accuracy lovers out there, the huge con is that the Sony does not have HGIG. Well, what is HGIG? So the HGIG is the HDR Gaming Interest Group. And basically they're a consortium of companies that want to standardize what HDR means. So we have HDR10, we have Dolby Vision, and then we have video games that, you know, have their own kind of standard sliders in there and things of this nature. So basically they wanted to meet together and create something where they're like, okay, let's create something, and according to their thing, that is how gaming experiences can provide a more immersive experience through HDR by identifying a set of best practices for content developers, game platforms, as well as for TV manufacturers. What's fascinating about HGIG is it turns off tone mapping. Now, what is tone mapping? Tone mapping is where your TV, when it's trying to do HDR is mastered at a certain brightness. So pretend I'm making a movie, I say I want it to be 4,000 nits. Nits is the brightness level, right? So I go, I want the TV to be 4,000 nits. But then the monitor that people have and home consumers have, it doesn't, those are $30,000 devices that the studios use. So your monitors will have like 800. Like for example, the LGs, their peak nits is like 800, right? Actually for LG, I think it's a little lower. But anyways, HDR tone mapping takes the loss of detail and kind of compresses it down into a viewable range. The issue is when it tries to do that, you know, especially if you double tone map. So basically HGIG is like the way for devices to say, look, we want to do it for the TV. We don't want the TV to do it. We're running the game system like PlayStation 5. We want to control the tone mapping. So HGIG allows you to turn off tone mapping on a TV completely. And do you know who has that? Do you know who has that? That's right, only LG has it. You know who's in the HGIG group? And this is the hilarious riot about HGIG. Sony. Sony is part of the Sony is corporation. Okay, so we're talking Sony, not Sony Computer Entertainment for just the video games. Sony Corporation, all of them. Electronics, cameras, displays, the entire Sony company, corporation, is in HGIG, and yet there is no HGIG on the Sony. You can't do it. You have to use a hack where you have to go gradation preferred and all this stuff. Now, with that being said, this is not the biggest deal. And look, I love accuracy. I'm one for accuracy, but I'm also one for realistic standards. HGIG is not an enforced standard. HGIG is something that, again, developers may choose to use, may choose not to use for when it comes to implementing the HDR on their video games. And HGIG, in some games just look like absolute dog trash on HGIG. Some, like Resident Evil Village, do look better because you get to see a bit more dynamic range in terms of like clouds, slightly more of the edging on the clouds, not a significant difference. So HGIG, while it is certainly more accurate, it can be significantly dimmer. And I have a dark room. So you guys saw the room that the TV's in. Well, I can literally make that pitch black and still HGIG is like, huh, this is pretty dark. So for me, I'm not necessarily a stickler for the accurate picture. I say I want the perhaps less accurate, but the more striking, visually striking picture. Call me old school, you know, but that's how it is. And I think perhaps any director even making a movie would agree. He wants the movie to look larger than life rather than accurate. So anyways, the things to note about it is that HGIG isn't a standardization body. They don't enforce any technologies or even license anything. They don't have a certification program, and it's just a group that basically just kind of shares the best ways to do things. So again, I mean, you created a group, but then you're not really creating anything viable. So HGIG, if that's a deal breaker for you, by all means, go for the LG. Now, this is the big reason, are you guys ready? And this is my conclusive opinion on LG C1, G1, and Sony A80J. I would not recommend the LG C1 and G1 to anybody who cares about a truly breathtaking visual experience. And that's as simple as that. At the end of the day, the LG C1 and G1 are great TVs, they're great OLEDs. However, compared to my Panasonic, okay, at the time, of course, my Panasonic was $5,000. It was a top of the line LED TV, but compared to my Panasonic LED, the current 2021 C1 and G1 don't look that impressive. They look almost identical. Obviously, you have just more contrast, but there's nothing about LG's A9 Gen processor that is wowing, incredible, or even noteworthy. The picture quality is absolutely, and again, this is a strong opinion, but for its price, for the prices that LG is charging, it's absolutely trash compared to the Sonys. A80J or A90J, doesn't matter which size you get. Now, if you get the Sony A80J 55-65, you'll get the matte screen, which can kind of affect the contrast, assuming you're in just a room with a window. But again, by how much and whether it bothers you is very subjective. And I wish I could give you more than that, but the truth is, nobody can. You have to just see it for yourself in person, in your environment, in your viewing room, and come to that conclusion on your own. But what I can tell you is definitively, Sony's incredible Bravia XR processor is what makes it a Sony, is what makes it a Bravia. Sony's ability to handle motion is so far superior to the C1 and the G1. No matter what I did to the C1 or the G1, and I thought perhaps the G1 would fare better, but apparently it doesn't, they just had that soap opera effect. And by all means, if you like watching Days of Our Lives, when you watch a movie, you're like, wow, it's like I'm watching Days of Our Lives. By all means, get the LG G1 and C1. Now, I'm talking specifically for movies right now. Now, when we talk for video games, again, call me old school, but I prefer having a picture that just beats ass, you know? It just whoops ass. And that's what the Sony does to the LGs, the G1 and the C1. And the G1's fares a lot, you know, about, I'd say, quite a bit better than the C1 in terms of banding and all this thing. Now, in terms you guys are wondering, yes, I calibrated. I'm not gonna claim I'm a professional calibrator, far from it. But what I did do was I obviously did the i1 Display Pro calibration with my Calman Ultimate purchase. Yes, that's right, I bought the Ultimate. And I'm not entirely new to calibrating calibrating through Calman. I've calibrated monitors, especially my monitors for the PC. I've done that plenty of times. TVs I'm a little more newer at. But now, just so you guys know, I didn't just put on an i1 display and calibrated it with AutoCal, or am I claiming I'm a professional calibrator, because I do that. And I wear a Deadpool mask and I dance in it. Okay. Maybe the audio video community might know who I'm talking about. Anyways, I actually calibrated it with the i1 display. Not only that, I put in a Spectro. Now I have the i1 Pro Spectro from X-Rite. And again, that's what creates that really accurate calibration, because you can't calibrate it without the Spectro. You need to, you could try, but you'll still be off. So the Spectro is a lot more accurate. And then you meter the Spectro for the actual colorimeter, and then you can run the colorimeter with those offsets after you verify the offsets are real. Now, I went ahead and did that, but at the end of the day, I just didn't feel like the Sony out of the box ever needed it. The delta errors were just so significantly low. I mean, we're talking less than 1.2. That's how low it was for my unit. That it's so imperceptible. I mean, sure, you could, I know that certain calibrators out there might disagree, but okay, it's not accurate. But again, how visually impactful is that accuracy to take hours, like 3-4 hours calibrating the unit, when the unit just looks stunning in any mode that it's in. So the Sony has the alternative white, well, they call it the modified JUD. And again, I've set it to JUD, which is just a slight bit warmer, but JUD, for you guys who don't know, is D65. And shout out to NinjicianAV and Keep It Classy Tech. Check those guys out. They have been a tremendous help in terms of fielding my questions about calibration, in terms of LG G1 calibration, Sony calibration, what they've observed. So go ahead and check them out, NinjicianAV and Keep It Classy Tech. With that being said, the calibration is so unnecessary for the Sonys. And at the same time, the biggest deal with those is the PQ, the picture quality. Now, when it comes to games, there's one huge con I want to mention. It's the ABL. What is ABL? It's automatic brightness limiter. Okay, so these OLEDs have something where when they detect certain things that might prone the screen to burn in and might ruin the panel, that's the issue of having that infinite contrast, is that they start dimming the screen in terms of nits slowly. And the Sony does this. LG does it as well. They both do it. But for gamers out there, you can turn it off on the LG by doing TPSC enable off, and then I believe the other one is like, anyways, you can get rid of the ABSL, excuse me. You can't get rid of ABL, but you can certainly dim what's called ABSL. ABSL is known as automatic brightness static limiter, which means if it detects certain static images, it starts lowering the brightness. This, I have noticed, is perhaps a problem if you're just literally, you have a game with a fixed HUD and it's just staying there. And perhaps the contrast behind the HUD, something isn't changing enough to offset it. That's where the dimness happens. So Fortnite is susceptible to it, but a lot of games let you turn that off. Not the greatest excuse in the world, but being honest here, when you have a TV that absolutely smashes all the other ones in terms of picture quality and processing, you try to work around it. You try to be like, okay, this is the best still in terms of price, for performance, not necessarily for price for features. I agree there. The price for picture quality, that's my standard, and I might be old school in that. Now, if you are a gamer, you might just be like, I don't care about picture quality, man. I just want something with excellent contrast that's not like my LED. Maybe you have a cheap LED, and you go, and plus now trying to get an older LED might be more expensive, right? Or you have to buy it used, so it's not viable. So you have to get an OLED. So you go, okay, well, I just want something with a lot of contrast, but then it has all the gaming features I need, and I can disable the ABSL because I play a lot of FIFA. Then God bless you, get the LG and then turn those things off in the service menu. Now, however, I should say that if LG were to be able to see that, and I'm pretty sure they can definitely see that you turn off ABSL, they can easily void your warranty like that. So if you wanna mess around with your warranty, you go for it, because a lot of people seem to think that, oh, they can't tell if I just go back in and turn it on and off. Who knows? They might have a debug log somewhere and they're logging all that. So you take that risk. But at the end of the day, you're also taking the risk of the LGs are, it's more likely that when you do that, you're more making it prone to burn it. So as a gamer, I would say, if you're looking at the LG for the ABSL, you should stop, because that's not really a point of discussion unless you're willing to void your warranty. or you're willing to play around with that, regardless of whether you think LG can tell or they can't tell. HGIG mode, as I discussed, not a big deal, not even being standardized. Nobody's giving it the time of day. And so, you know, again, HDR when it comes to video games is kind of a mixed bag. Some games look better with DTM, dynamic tone mapping on the LG, or just on Sony in general. I personally just go ahead and I would just prefer in Sony the hack, which is gradation preferred, but you set in the system, you set the HDR with the menu settings off. Apparently Vincent Teoh figured this out. So HDTV test. Thanks to him for figuring that out, making it easier on everybody else. Now, again, this might be a strong opinion, but there's in no world can I absolutely recommend the LG if you care about a visually striking picture. People want to say it's close. They want to say, well, it's very close. It's a close call. And I think the reason people want to say that is because they don't want to alienate their YouTube subscriber base, right? Because they don't want to lose the LG people. The LG sucks when it comes to wowing, when it comes to impressing. And it's not even just if you go into a store like Costco and you look at an LG, people are just kind of whizzing by the LG. It's nothing that magically delicious. And again, the motion handling for me on the LG is absolutely garbage when enabling motion smoothing. Now, if you turn off motion on the Sony and the LG perhaps fares better with the motion off. But if you're playing with motion off, you're doing the wrong thing, because OLEDs have such a fast response time that you need that. Otherwise, it creates its own internal judder. So I don't know what you're doing if you're doing that. Don't do that. Stop. Which TV do I recommend? If it hasn't been clear right now, definitely the Sonys of 2021. If you can grab it, grab it. You know, and if you can grab the biggest size you can, even if you think the 55 is big. So I have a 55 inch. I had an LG 65 inch. I had, I think that's like, I don't know, I believe that's a 65 inch LCD. And then I finally made the jump to the 77. And let me tell you, it's like, it's perfect. But make sure that you guys calculate your viewing distances in terms of THX ideal. Now, this is how I do it. So THX ideal says that in order to calculate for us, you take the distance, okay, between your couch and where your TV is in inches, and you multiply it by 0.835. And this should tell you the size of the TV you should get for the ideal THX ideal setting. THX ideal, because our eyes are conical, fills up 40 degrees field of view. And that's really important to me. It was. Now, I have an amazing mount that can come out all the way, and it can make a 55 inch into what is prospectively looks like a 77 inch THX ideal, but it's much closer and it blocks the path. Not good enough. So, looks a little bougie too. So again, if you can, do the math. Do the math. Get the size that you need. The Sony, the audio, again, I don't know, it's like LG puts like little child's, you know, the speakers and children's toys in their TVs, and then you go to the Sony and it's like a day and night difference. Again, I believe the baseline on Sonys are even better than the LGs, but then obviously the G1 speakers fare better than the C1. But then again, the Sonys, A80J, 90J, they just still trumpet speaker-wise. They're doing some kind of projection with that thing, which is off the charts. Now with Sony, one con I see passed around a lot on HDTV test and all this stuff is that people are claiming that the Sony holds on to retention a lot. I have not found that to be the case, but maybe I got lucky in the panel lottery. I do believe that the reviews claiming this are the 55 and the 65 ones, and not entirely sure if they're using the Evo panel, because again, it's kind of a toss-up. You might get the Evo panel, which is the WBE panel, or you might get the old one. And I believe that definitely does allow the panel to be more efficient and allow less retention. So if you're getting the 77-inch, you know, Sony or the 83-inch, they come with the Evo panel. If you're getting the G1, you're completely fine. There's no, and the C1, of course, given that you have the Evo panel, you should be fine as well. But I do believe that the C1 and G1 exhibit less motion retention than the Sonys on average, at least the 55 and 65 Sonys. It's a hard call. That might be a huge deal breaker, and I get it, because if someone sees like it's held onto a face and you can see that, it is a bad look. And hopefully Sony can do something for those TVs. However, in my test sample, I noticed absolutely no image retention. And if I did, it would happen very briefly for icons that were very bright, but I was on Netflix in vivid mode, right on the screen for a really long time, reading the plot, changed over, nothing. But I have seen some people with the 55, 65, they're just on there for like barely 30 seconds and they switch over and you see a clear image retention and it just looks really bad. So again, that might be a huge deal breaker for even the moviegoers. But I say again, you might only see that in very, very minor cases where you switch to something that's, you know, very contrasted from something prior where the static element was there. Again, I do feel that your money would be better spent with the Sonys over the LGs any day of the week. And I'm not shilling here for Sony. I'm just saying it like it is. If you don't like it, I'm sorry that you bought the wrong TV for, you know, now you're in your emotions and you're trying to say, no, it can't be. The LG it's right there. It's like an A90J. With all due respect, you can't say it, and I'm sure you can't say it unless you've literally had all of them in front of you like I did. Anyways, guys, I hope this was helpful. This is the Sony A80J review, also compared to the LG G1 and the C1. Now, again, I calibrated all of the sets. Sony still came out on top in terms of a lot. However, I think it's perhaps a lot more easier to get the LGs closer to reference. A lot easier, and I do believe the 3D LUTs allow a much more superior calibration, which only the LG has. Sony may or may not get it, and I'm not sure if they can get that through a firmware update. But at the end of the day, again, what do you value more? Color accuracy, where you're like, oh my God, this is wonderful, and a very kind of washed out, and when I say washed out, I mean in terms of its quality, the crispness, image, not in terms of color, but the quality. It looks kind of, just looks like an LCD panel, if I'm being honest. The LG C1 and the G1, with just exceptional contrast, but still not the greatest look. Do you want an accurate LG G1 C1 with all the gaming features? And again, it's completely fine, but just be realistic about the picture quality. I'm not slamming the LG G1 C1. I'm just saying, for me, being old school, I value picture quality above all else. Features second, maybe even third, if I can be honest with you. Size is second. So again, picture quality, size, features third. And again, Sony will probably come out with the VRR. They'll probably even come out with HGIG, who knows? But at the end of the day, with gradation, preferred that exceptional processing, the amazing image quality of the Sonys. There's like nothing the LGs can do. They are in the kiddie pool. And then the Sonys are just on a whole other level. Anyways, guys, this is Tech Tales. Bye.